Hello and welcome once again to the Square Ball podcast, powered by William Hill. Change attack with myself and Lee this week. It is All-Ireland Hurling final week, and to that end we've invited a couple of special guests in, Lee, to help us preview what could be a potential classic between Cork and Clare at Croke Park this Sunday. Former Limerick hurler Shane Dowling and former Cork hurler Alan Cadogan. Lads, thanks a million.
Thanks, lads.
Dave.
How are we?
Good enough.
Big week, particularly for you, Alan, obviously. Shane, not so much, although you'd be working Sunday for RT.
I'm sure it's bigger for Shane, depending who wins.
Especially be on the border.
Yeah, I think as a Limerick person, obviously the last couple of years has been, I suppose, something that you wouldn't have dreamed of growing up anyway, especially in the year I grew up, and in any year, I suppose, over the last number of decades in Limerick. You know, we've had a wonderful time and lucky to be part of it in 2018. And you know, the battle will be handed over now to Cork or to Clare, and I think for the Clare people looking, when they look and see what Limerick done over the last couple of years, it most certainly wouldn't have been an easy watch. The rivalry down there would be fairly strong. So, and I'd say the shoe would be on the other foot now from a Limerick perspective if Clare were to win it, but that's just the way it goes. And I think from a neutral perspective, you know, removing your Limerick hat and everything else, you know, for the game, I suppose, it is good that there's, you know, two new teams going into the game this year, and it is, no matter what people really say, it is really 50-50. So looking at the bigger picture, it is great from a hurling viewpoint.
Yeah, it would be first for Clare in 11 years, first for Cork in 19 years. You've had 10 days or so to digest the events of the All-Ireland semi-final down in Limerick. It's been a long time since you haven't been looking forward to an All-Ireland final. After the game, John Kiely said the hurt is going to be god-awful. Has it been god-awful over the last week and a half?
Yeah, like I think, I suppose the fact that it was just, it was the history that was on the line, wasn't it? You know, because, I mean, would it be as god-awful if the same thing happened next year? Probably not. It was something special that you could have created that you just unfortunately fell short. And I suppose the beauty, not the beauty, but I suppose thankfully that, you know, they fell, you know, while putting in such a good performance, because we've probably seen over the years teams that are going for that, maybe like Kilkenny in 2010, like Tip beat him fairly comprehensively, where this game, the game against Cork, went down to the wire. So it was disappointing, and I always go back to just what I said at the start. In Limerick, it's not as if we got an All-Ireland every 5 or 7 or 10 years. You know, we had to wait 45. And as I said, I grew up playing in an era where winning a Munster Championship game was massive, whereas now it's an expectation. So I remember the bad days, if you want to call it. So just because we've won the last 4 and we were going for 5 and you lose, it's not as if, it's a pity we just go again next year. It really is disappointing, because you're just in an era now where I suppose you're trying to rack up as many as you can. And I think the secret now for Limerick is that you don't go 45 years without winning one again.
I don't think so.
No, that's not going to happen. But my point is it's just important that you kind of win one every, and obviously that team are still there and they're going absolutely nowhere. But even going forward, I think the trick is, like when you say how long it is since Cork won one, and considering the size of their county, if you could just win one every, you know, once every 5, 7, 10 years, and even look at Kilkenny, they're now 10 years next year without winning All-Ireland.
It's amazing how quickly that a couple of barren years becomes a famine.
This is it. And like if you said to anyone back in 28, 9, 10, 11, 12, whatever it was, that Kilkenny won't win one again, you know, since it did in 2014, they'd have laughed at you. But that's what happens.
I think the group is pretty strong as well in terms of age profile. I don't foresee them dropping off, or even from a John Kelly perspective. It seems like, okay, as disappointed as that was, which is a great sign, probably not a good sign for the rest going forward, but it just shows the hurt that is, but also looking forward what the response will be from that group.
Yeah, funny enough, I don't really look at age, if I'm being honest. I look at a success and mileage, if that's the right word. I mean, you could be a 30-year-old that mightn't have come onto a panel since you were 25 or 6, while you may have won nothing, and you're still really, really energetic, and really the willingness is really there. And it's not that won't be there with Limerick next year, but the 30-year-olds that are there now will be on a journey for the last 8 years after winning, you know, have been very successful. It's hard to do it year in, year out. You know, so it's not the age bracket to look at it from the outside. You'd say, yeah, they're still, even in their prime, if you want to call it. But I just look at what you've won and how long you've been involved in a project. And I think when you're like that, it just becomes that bit harder.
We met Kiely briefly there, and still no confirmation, Alan, as to whether John Kiely and Paul Kinnerk are going to be back next year. A lot of what Limerick achieve next year and maybe beyond surely stems from whether or not they are going to be there. Like, if they're both there, for me, regardless of what happens this Sunday, Limerick are my favourites right now for the 2025 All-Ireland. You take one or both of Kiely and Kinnerk out of that, changes the complexion of the story completely.
Yeah, definitely. I think what John and his management team have achieved in the last number of years is phenomenal. You know, from a Munster point of view, but also from an All-Ireland point of view as well, as Shane said, that nearly when he first came in, winning Munster title, progressing on from that then maybe, but it's seen as a given now. And as you just said there, that whether John and his management team and Paul Kinnock, for example, if they stay on next year, like you saw there that John Coyle is taking a sabbatical from teaching vice principalship. So from an outside point of view, are you looking going, he's going to give it another year or two? Or is he going, look, I've done my time, I've given everything I have, I'm going to take a step back, maybe enjoy life a bit, maybe with family. So, yeah, no, again, whoever comes in there, there's a real good cohort of players. And as you alluded to there, I don't see anyone stepping away just because they were beating the All-Ireland semi-final, going for a drive for 5. You know, I don't think there'll be any retirees. But then again, is that freshness there? Is that hunger there to come back? Again, whether you're 30 or whether you're 32, 33, for example. But it is a relatively young group. And as you said there, the big question, I think, is on everyone's minds is, will John and Paul stay on?
I think it's like same with football. The landscape changes. So over time, like to do 5 in a row must be just. We've seen the great teams try to do it. It's just next to impossible in hurling seems to be. But it's good for the game. I think in some regards. I know you'll argue saying obviously from a Limerick perspective, but now you have a fresh Cork team, you have a fresh Clare team, but it's all Munster teams. You know, so obviously it just shows the depth that Munster teams have in what they're doing and how competitive that is. That group to get not only get out of it because you look, both of them didn't win the provincial. And they're an All-Ireland final. So it just shows the acid test they're going through. So I don't foresee Munster teams getting any weaker anytime soon by the looks of what we've seen this year.
No, Shane, like, you know, like Munster Championship is a minefield. You know, like if you said now who predict your top 3 teams that are going to come out of Munster next year, you can't do that. Even at the start here, people weren't too sure whether Cork would come out based off the previous year, getting knocked out by Limerick. Compared to maybe Leinster, no disrespect to Leinster hurling, you probably could predict now. Obviously, there was
this year's Leinster Championship was a belter.
It was.
I'm going to stand up for the Leinster Championship.
But it was a belter, but
compared to Munster.
Standard-wise, I get it.
You're going by excitement levels,
Exactly.
Dave, not standard levels. There's a big difference.
Yeah.
And you can see that now. You've seen that with the semi-finals. You've seen that even through quarterfinals. That gap and that's what I'm talking about. That Munster is just a bear pit.
It is.
And because you're just so damaged from it, you just know what to do going through the next steps of the All-Ireland. So
it's amazing that I think in any walk of life, I definitely believe you need just a small bit of luck to succeed. And I mean, you look at Pat Ryan, who could potentially be an All-Ireland winning manager on Sunday. He was, and I don't want to preempt, but he probably would have been out of a job maybe if Cork didn't get out of Munster this year. Like, you know, or he would have been, not that he done anything wrong, but 2 years didn't get out of Munster. Cork expectations, great manager, fantastic way about him. I was lucky to be in his company once, had a lovely conversation with him. Obviously, you know him, he's a lovely man, but I suppose my point is that you just need a bit of luck.
Yeah.
You know, and especially when you look at Munster, to get out of Munster, right? Look at Waterford, like Davy Fitz no longer in Waterford, right? You know, he was really unlucky not to get out of Munster this year. Pat Ryan really lucky.
Yeah.
You know, and I know you create your own look and all that goes with it, but it just goes to show how competitive, I suppose, hurling is. And it does go back to the Munster Championship because the truth be told, like Leinster, is it really that competitive at this moment in time? There's probably there's 3 teams get out. There's 4 teams possibly could. I know Carlow had a good draw against Kilkenny this year, but they were never going to get out of Leinster. So, you know, it is Munster is where it's at, and it's up to the other teams to get up to them standards.
With that luck, for example, that you just said there, Cork would have been out of the championship compared to that 65 that Aidan McCarthy scored down
fine
in.
margins.
Very,
Tip
very
scored 1-2 in injury time against Waterford.
There you
Cork
go.
are gone.
Cork
If
are gone.
Kyle Hayes doesn't bring down Shane Kingston, Cork are gone.
They're gone.
But there was a feeling amongst people that I'd spoken to in the aftermath of the Cork Limerick game, the first game in the park, that could come back and haunt Limerick. They had a chance to lay Cork out of the championship tonight, and they haven't done it. And lo and behold, 6 weeks later, it's because of Cork that Limerick are gone.
Yeah, it's the one thing I suppose where John and Paul have been so good over the last number of years is when they come across a team that maybe got one up on them or nearly beat them. It's just tactically, teams generally don't do it twice. And I mean, for Cork to win the All-Ireland this year, to beat Limerick, the All-Ireland champions, twice in a year, and if they were to go on and win it, like, talk about absolute deserving winners.
Clare have been beaten twice by them.
Clare have been beaten twice. And actually, a stat for you, I think if Clare do win on Sunday, they'd be the first team to win an All-Ireland after being beaten twice in the championship.
Did Limerick learn their lessons from the first day in Park Equive, do you think?
I think, when you look at game plan, so just take Limerick for one quick sec. people know exactly how Limerick play for the last 6 years, and loads of management teams have tried to beat it. It's one thing knowing how Limerick play, it's another thing trying to beat it. Limerick knew exactly what Cork were going to bring to Croke Park. I have no doubt in my mind that they trained extremely eloquently to try and overturn exactly what Cork do, but they just didn't do it.
And Cork haven't reinvented the wheel or anything. We always said that, whatever team beat Limerick, they're going to have to play them not their own game. Cork haven't reinvented the wheel. They've played 3 inside and everything has been puck long and they're just getting bodies in. Now again, a couple of weeks ago, if you said, puck the ball down top of Limerick half back line, they'll go, those 3 lads will eat you up. But, I felt looking at the game maybe 2 weeks ago that there was a nervousness there in Limerick in their half back line, their full back line.
Pace
that ball. Pace
scares everybody. It really does.
But it's clever what they did, and you said about pucking the ball down on top of the Limerick half back line. Yeah, they pucked ball down on top of Dermot Burns. They obviously avoided Kyle Hayes, which has been well talked about. But what they did with Declan Hannon I thought was brilliant anyway. They basically got Shane Barrett to come out to his own 65. Declan had to go and mark him, and they just brought Brian Hayes out to the edge of the D and fired the ball down on top of Brian Hayes. And then Declan had to turn and go back while Barrett was running at pace. And I've never seen any team really do that. But for that, you need a goalkeeper. He's a serious belt of a ball, doesn't he?
And even when he goes short, for example, I remember a puck that he gave to Niall Larry. Niall Larry got it and gave it back to him, took a couple of yards forward, and then just launched it long.
But I think they learned from that day down in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, they tried to play it out. When Collins went short, they tried to play it out and they coughed up 2 goals anyway.
I still think Cork were the bravest against it though on the 2 occasions. Were the teams or not? I still think Cork were I always say
Clare brave, to be fair nowadays.
To a degree, but I think Cork just had a bit more about them. They went at them a bit more. Even after the first, I agree. I think they would do it the second time against that Limerick team. To be honest,
you just expect Limerick to learn.
Yeah.
And look, and if they had taken some of those chances, was it 50 shots in goal they had? A couple more of them go over. It's only still a 1-score game. We're talking about them so differently. And outrageous save from Patrick Collins as well.
Cork didn't score in the last maybe about 10-12 minutes.
Yeah.
So again, efficiency as well was important. John Kiley mentioned that after that, the efficiency rate maybe wasn't there towards the end.
But this has suddenly become a review of the All-Ireland Hurling semi-final.
Rather than a
preview.
I'm going to ask Alan, what I suppose from Cork's side, we all know in Cork's world, what's the atmosphere like in Cork?
Yeah.
I'm sure now it's
it's building.
Right.
The atmosphere is big.
It's well built at this stage.
It's well built since the semi-final.
Tickets sold out in 30 minutes.
Tickets sold out. They're like gold dust down there. There's a drought there, shall we say? Haven't won All-Ireland in 19 years. First All-Ireland final since 2021. So people are excited about it. You've seen with the All-Ireland semi-final, full house. And again, obviously that's going to be the case on Sunday. But then again, you're coming up against a really good Clare team that, again, have beaten Cork in the round robin. No one probably was saying to Shane there, no one would have predicted Cork being an All-Ireland final after that defeat. And I was at that game and the mood in the stadium was very subdued. Whereas now, the hype is there. And that's whether it be hurling or football getting to Ireland or All-Ireland semi-final, that the hype is always going to be there because there's an expectation in Cork, whatever happened the previous year, you're expected to win. Yeah. And that's always going to be there, whether it be in hurling, football, soccer, rugby, whatever, that expectation from the Cork supporters.
Do you feel it will be detrimental in any way to the players, or are they well averse at this stage, knowing the hype around this game and not winning in that length of time?
You would like to think that the players are experienced enough now. It's a relatively young group, but
I think 11 of the 15 that started the semi-final played in 2021, which is a far greater number than Clare in 2013, obviously, when there's only 3 of them left. Yeah. Do you think that is a factor, that it's very recent in the memory of these Cork players? Yeah,
and I saw recently that you would like to think that those players have learned a lot since the 2021 defeat, or not even the defeat, but maybe just the build up to it. Now, obviously, back then it was COVID times where you only had 40 half the capacity, whereas now, for example, you're going in full house, for example. There's a real expectation, there's a real buzz. Like, even going in for the All-Ireland semi-final, still Limerick were favourites, whereas now Cork are going in and people are going, geez, Cork should win this. They're expected to win the way they're performing, and maybe that's looking at the 2 semi-finals, the way Clare performed, for example. But I suppose from my own experience, it's just important that you kind of keep that hype down, for example, yourself, Lee. But again, Pat Ryan is a good mixture of youth and experience within that, and a good backroom team to manage that and kind of stop the outside noise, shall we say.
Talk to us about 2018, Shane, because Limerick hadn't won the All-Ireland since 73. I don't think you had been in the final since 2007, is that correct, when you were beaten by Kilkenny? Yeah. So you would imagine that Limerick would have been in a similar situation to Cork this week, where the hype would just be almost suffocating. And I remember John Milan was writing earlier this week about his approach to the 08 final. He chose to try and embrace the chaos, and he says that was a mistake. By the time the day arrived, he was mentally exhausted, and he feels a lot of the players in the Waterford panel with him were. So what was 2018 like for you guys?
Yeah, listen, I suppose we just gone back, very good management team, really, really good woman in Caroline Curran, a sports psychologist. But a sports psychologist, God, I don't even know if that's the right word. She's just a person that just gets things, brings things together. Like sometimes when you hear about sports psychologists, it's all about, are they getting inside your head and all that? A load of rubbish. Like I remember we, it was 2 days after the semi-final, we met in it was the Kilmurray Lodge. When we got there, you had all the suit crowd that came, whatever, your clothes measured, all done. The next time we saw the suits were when we got into the City West after the match in our room, ready to go. Like, that was that boxed off. We weren't allowed to deal with tickets, so you had to nominate one person that night. You nominate one person who's dealing with the tickets, and Caroline liaised with every single one of them, and any ticket request, if you got a call about it, nothing to do with me, you have to contact my dad, my mum, my brother, whatever it was, whoever was, so they were done with straight away. The other thing is, in the day and age we live in now, you cannot run away from what you're facing, right? So if you try and bury yourself away from it, you're actually, I think you could be is more detrimental than actually just saying, yeah, we're in this and this is it. And like everybody has, or the majority of people have social media, you see what's going on, you go to work, you walk down the street, you're meeting your buddies, you're going for coffee. I saw a picture of the 3 Clare boys in some restaurant down in Clare the other day, where they obviously just went for a bite to eat, and like it is what it is. And I know John Milan might have said, but to embrace something in 2008, I'd say you had to go looking for it. Whereas now it's on your doorstep. It's just a different mindset. And I just wondered, is hype even as much of a thing these days as it was 15 years ago? Because all them players over the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years, they would have seen all the hype for previous finals. They, like Cork, is there really any more hype in them Cork players' lives than they saw coming up to the Limerick game with a full house? They've experienced the noise. They've experienced the stadium. And the only difference is, as Alan rightly said, is that there's now an expectancy on Cork to win, rather it was a free shot the last day. And it's just how they cope with that. I don't know Gary Keegan, I presume you've obviously worked with him as well. He's a huge part of playing this, but I think they will not really learn much on the training field this week or last week. A lot of what they need to get done right is in their heads and off the training field for 2 weeks.
I think that's important, because something we struggle with for years is that come down from an absolute monster performance against
2012 for you guys. You beat the All-Ireland champions.
Exactly, yeah.
This epic second half.
I wasn't even playing. I was in the hospital.
And it just doesn't go for you in the final then. Cork could be in a really similar boat to Mayo 2012.
Yeah, and I think that psychology sometimes is that come down is so difficult in the 2 week period. Like when we played back then, we had 4 weeks to prep for an All-Ireland. So we had time, which was nearly a bit detrimental to some of us, because we had too much time to think about it and try and play at the game. But we're still rewinding back to the good stuff we did against Dublin. And that's where maybe the 2 week gap mightn't be as detrimental to these guys, because the game's on your doorstep before you know it. So it's just a hard one. Just depends how players look at it. And I said brilliant performance, but before you know it, you're in a final against Clare. And
it's very short.
It's short. Yeah. That can be a good or a bad thing. It just depends how players feel about it and look at their game and just move on with it. Because as you said, there's nothing to learn in 2 weeks. You know the Clare players, you know what you did against Limerick. It's just about going out and doing it. Easier said than done, but we've all said it and we haven't done it. So
Alan, I was in Welsh Park for the defeat to Waterford. I was on commentary that day, and the feeling leaving the ground was that a Cork attack that still had Seamus Harnedy, Patrick Horgan and Conor Lahan in it was going nowhere. These lads weren't able to get the job done in 2013. Here we are 11 years later, succession of managers later, and they're still being relied on. Now, I know Conor has played not as much of a role since, but Patrick Horgan and Harnedy in particular has just caught fire. Yeah. What has changed? Is it probably a much easier thing to ask you than for you to actually answer it? But if you rewind the clock to that day, and I was in Waterford with your brother Owen, who was on analysis duty for us that day, you guys were bereft. And here you are, favourites for the All-Ireland title. It's just an astonishing turnaround.
Yeah, like with that first round game, even on the outset looking on, you knew you were going into the Lions Den against Waterford. You had that talk, for example, there's lots of things going on in Waterford, they're not happy with Davy, players missing, etc. And you just, in the back of my head, I was thinking, they're going in here, Waterford have been relegated to Division 1B, and all these kind of factors were taking place, and you knew when Cork were going in there that they were going in for a serious battle. Now, one thing I will say is that the team that started that day is much different to the team that starts now. But going back to your point with the 3 older fellas, that was brought to me as well, saying, oh, can Cork win All-Ireland, or can they be successful with these 3 lads? And I asked them who were Cork's 2 best forwards the previous year, and it was Seamus Harnedy and Patrick Horgan in my view. So Pat has made some subtle changes. He's brought in a few, but as I said there a while ago, he has, I suppose, a very good mix now of that maybe under 20 All-Ireland winning teams in the last 2 or 3 years coming through with that experience as well. And maybe now we're beginning to see that coming through. But again, as I said there, like the first 2 games, the atmosphere down in Cork was very poor, very negative, for example. But they have turned it around, and I always said, even going to the Limerick game, the 3rd round robin game, when Cork's backs were to the wall, I always found that they'd always come out fighting, and that was one positive thing from that game down in the park.
I am a firm believer that results in games can drive a wrong narrative, right? So that day that Cork lost to Clare down in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, right, and left the Cork, atmosphere subdued. Cork had a really, really good start to the second half. They went either 4 or 5 points up and had an unbelievable goal chance. That goal goes in, they'd have won the game, right? And like then afterwards it was all, because I was working that night and I remember we were looking deep into it, and I was saying Cork should have won that game. Now they left Clare in it, and when that was a mistake they made, because Clare came back, and then it was a real topsy-turvy game, right?
They played that last quarter with 14 men as well.
Exactly. So Cork actually played really well that night for large periods of the game, but Clare very good as well. So going into the Limerick game, not many gave them a chance. I know Alan would say when their backs were to the wall to come out fighting, but going into that game against Limerick, their form actually, maybe with the exception of the Waterford game, their form against Clare was really, really strong. And I don't think they've probably got the credit that maybe they deserved, going into the final now, and after the last day they'll get plenty of credit. But they've been playing some really good hurling all year. And I know against Offaly you're in a lose-lose situation, then you're going in the next day, then there was talks of sickness in the camp or whatever. They got over the line. Clare got over the line. Yeah. Clare just got over, so they're playing well, they have a really good team. Pat Ryan, he made 6 changes after the day against Waterford. Then all the talk was, why didn't he do that beforehand? So
it's narrative.
It's narrative, and I just sometimes you can go looking down rabbit holes looking for excuses when actually there isn't too many there.
Yeah. And you've just Pat Horgan's last dance, or is it more than him? If he wins, maybe.
If he wins, you might say, will he stay on?
Yeah.
It's very hard to know.
Phenomenal hurler.
I've played with him. Just loves the game. If it is his last dance, if it was, it'd be great to go from the high, obviously. If it doesn't, will he call it a day maybe? Who knows?
Yeah,
it's 50-50.
It's funny you said that mix of youth, because I bet that youth's just driving him to the player he is.
He said that.
Yeah. It brings a different element in you. Do you know?
Maybe if he falls a couple of points short of TJ Reid's record by the full-time whistle, he might have to go back again next year.
I don't think he'll care if he gets
It's interesting, Alan, because you obviously the last couple of years of your Cork career was really frustrating. You couldn't get back into that full forward line, even though you felt you were going well and you'd got over your injuries. Cork playing a 3-man inside forward line this year. It's like you said, Cork haven't reinvented the wheel. It's almost like they've gone back to the time the wheel was first invented. Because how long is it since we've seen 3 out-and-out forwards in there, 2 in the corner, 1 down the middle? Patrick Horgan's legs wouldn't allow him playing a 2-man full forward line. So what do? Pat Ryan puts another man in there with them. And look what they've managed to achieve. All 3 of them, Connolly, Horgan and Hayes, are all-star nomination material.
It's the size of them as well, which is important. It's great saying, we're pucking the ball long. But if you look at the size of Cork forward line now in height, you've Declan Dalton over 6 foot. Seamus Harnedy, Patrick Horgan, Brian Hayes. So you have these big men inside in the full forward line, but no one would predict of playing a 3-man full forward line. I can't remember when was the last team. You usually have your 2 inside and your 1 coming out floating maybe in that 15 role. But as I said there, Pat identified this, maybe Patrick Horgan's part of my plans. Can he play a 2 inside? Probably not for 70 minutes. So let's put a big man inside her. And Shane said there, Brian Hayes coming out maybe on top of the D, for example, and contesting that high ball and getting breaks off it.
Yeah, but you throw the former there fits as well on top of that. That's a huge, what he did against Limerick 2 weeks ago. Phenomenal, 3 points in play, but he was just involved in everything. So if you add that dynamic to what they have, I mean, it's pretty dangerous.
And it's crucial for Sunday, isn't it, Shane? Because there were times in the first half, Kilkenny should have had Clare beaten in that semi-final, really. If they'd taken their chances and performed in the first 10 minutes of the second half, and the Kilkenny inside forward line really gave that Clare full back line serious problems. Now, you could argue that quality of the ball should have been stifled further out the field. But if this Cork full forward line, the amount of scores they're getting from play is astonishing. All 6 forwards are contributing from play. Would you fear for the Clare full back line this Sunday?
Yeah, and you know, I was at a talk a couple of years ago by a fellow named Tony Robbins. I don't know if you ever heard of him, right? Real interesting.
Self-help guru.
Yeah. Not that I needed self-help, no. It was more motivational. But I went to a couple of people. But geez, he was brilliant. He left the room hopping. Anyway, we've all heard the quote, you know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Isn't that it, right? Where he actually said, if it ain't broke, fix it. Don't wait until you have to, right? So my point here is that Clare, I would be fairly certain, are not going to do anything different than they've done all year. Brian Lohan tried it a couple of years ago in the semi-finals, didn't work out. Probably came in for a bit of criticism, just went back to basics, if you want to call it, the last day and won, so he's not going to change. So the last day, you David McInerney, John Conlon and Dermot Ryan, all nearly in the middle of the field, following their man. That's what they do, man on man, right? That is going to leave a frightening amount of space to the Cork full forward line. And I suppose what I'm saying is that, you know, I just think they need to fix something really, really small. Like, even if it's just John Conlon that sits back, and I won't say allowing Shane Barrett free, maybe the midfielder just have to come back a bit. You're not playing a sweeper, but you're good. I think anyway they're going to have to give some sort of protection, because if Lord or God was in that full back line with the space that's there, I don't think he'd be able to stop the Cork forwards.
But they will have that extra man if they only play 2 inside, won't they? They'll have, Clare will have that option of... They
won't really, no. They go man on man. That's it. You know, your half back line marks a half. It is an open play now, right? And that's what they have been doing. Very evident the last day. Kilkenny had massive amount of space the last day and had the chances but just didn't take them. If Cork get the same amount of chances next to with the space, because, you know, the Clare full back line have been, you know, have been going well with Hogan, Cleary and Lean. They were decent enough. Last Adam Hogan was brilliant, but Jesus, with the space that could be there if Clare give it, they just could go to town.
Yeah.
Can you imagine now inside, right? And great inside forward. I didn't play in myself. I wouldn't have the pace this many beside me.
Put the poacher.
Launch it in there. But just imagine if you had that space.
But they always did that. They always went man on man. When I was playing Clare, I've never remembered anyone kind of sitting back or a sweeper.
Yeah.
They always went. They trusted their full back line, push up, but. As you said there, they're leaving.
I think you'd be the greatest fan in the world, but if, like I said before, if you have pace at all, Croke Park's a different beast to try and defend.
So what do they do then if Clare do that? Cork then need to occupy John Conlon. So who do they put on him to ensure that John Conlon can't be that holding man, that he can't play the Declan Hannon role and stifle these Cork attacks by trying to offer that protection to the Clare full back line?
But you have that triangle, I suppose, which is important, of Fitzgibbon, Barrett and O'Mahony that started the last day. So
all speedsters,
all love
frightening when you think about it.
All love breaking the line. So if John Conlon sits, which I think he has to, or they might, who's going to pick up Barrett? Maybe a midfielder. Yeah, that's fine. But then who picks up Tim O'Mahony or Darragh Fitzgibbon in around? So you usually identify a midfielder. Go, yeah, look, he's your playmaker. He's not going to get much in play, for example. But you have 2 midfielders now, especially Fitzgibbon, driving through the centre. You know, the score that he got there from a quick buck up from Patrick Collins, where Kyle Hayes was out of position up the wing. So it'd be very interesting to see who the matchup's going to be on Sunday.
That just something you mentioned there, that point Darragh Fitzgibbon got, right? I'd love anyone to go back and watch it. Kyle Hayes got a great point, right? The ball was hardly gone over Patrick Collins' head, and Darragh Fitzgibbon was gone into where Kyle's position was. So I'd say within 5 seconds the ball was put back over Nicky Quaid's bar when Kyle got to score on the other end. So that just is a massive point for me on Sunday. Johnny Murphy's down to referee it. What's he going to do with the puckouts?
Who's throwing the ball? Who's throwing the ball?
Who's throwing the ball? Everyone. But anyway, that we need another full show for that. But Tomas Walsh last day left the puckouts go at a rapid pace. Is it good or bad? It's good for the viewership of the game. The thing is going a million miles an hour, 99 shots the last day. But if Johnny doesn't allow that, then there's going to be a bit more structure to it.
And why wouldn't Johnny allow it?
Well, see, we don't know the direction that he's going to get from Croke Park. So I'd love to be flying the wall in these meetings that say that Johnny was in, or the review meetings with Tomas Walsh and Liam Gordon the last day, just to see what they're saying. And I actually think, I think Johnny Murphy, that he's not allowed to do it. I think he should be given instruction from Croke Park before the game. Go down into the dressing rooms, have a chat with both managers. Tell them that you're allowing quick puck outs, you're not allowing quick puck
But
outs.
under what circumstances, Shane, would a referee ever want to lengthen the time between the restarts?
Because it's always saying that if a ball goes over the bar, he's to write in his book, they have to come outside the 21 and, then wait for the whistle. There's
So
famous.
it's paperwork related.
Well, it's paperwork and wait for the whistle.
It's on the thing as well.
Right, so the last day, maybe Tomas Walsh, just the minute the ball went over bar, blew the whistle, rode in the score, and off he went. Some referees might need a breather themselves. They might say, no, wait for the whistle. Now we'll all get set up and go again. So it's just an interesting one.
It's interpretation of what they want to do.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and that's what's really annoying with the rule book is interpretation.
Every referee's different.
Different, yeah. Even the hand pass, or like we see it across every game. Like,
So someone like Pat Ryan, who was very much against quick puck outs a couple of years ago, like he was pretty vocal about it. That's obviously one aspect. It's all about the inches where he has managed to improve this Cork team, because he said, we've been caught with this in the past. We're not going to let it happen again. And that point from Fitzgibbon was just
That was
prime
off the cuff,
example
though.
of it.
but are you
That's
saying
not a-
this is benefit for Clare as a result?
No,
now?
well, I'm saying that
Both teams.
Pat Ryan will speak to the referee surely before the game. What exactly is your interpretation of puck out times going to be today? You would imagine both
Or the
managers. will.
goalkeepers, you often see that. I
Yeah.
don't know whether a manager would engage with a referee.
Well, someone
prior
on their
to it.
behalf.
Maybe. Obviously, Johnny Murphy will go into.
I think it's a positive
goalkeepers.
thing, though. You lay down your rules before the game, though.
But it just shows humanism. The one thing I see with GA Go this year is they actually interview referees before the game. I think it's brilliant. I think the more referees show humanism, the more respect they'll get. It's when referees try to be Billy Big Balls or they don't want to talk to people or whatever.
blank you.
That's when people actually get really agitated. Just because Johnny Murphy's refereeing Sunday, imagine him going down to the dressing room, chatting away to the two boys. They're under massive pressure now. Everyone's under massive pressure on Sunday. Referee, managers, players, everyone. But just imagine a 5-minute chat. Listen, as this is what I'm just going to look out for. You can have a quick chat with your players. I'll try my best. I hope it all works out. Best of luck to everyone the way you go. People have more respect for him.
Players appreciate that.
They do, yeah.
They appreciate communication.
And Dave is delighted. I just plugged Diego as well.
But come here, look, out of everyone in the room right now, Shane, you know Johnny Murphy better than any of us. So the throw ball on Sunday, there's the potential, and as with the case with the slight interpretation of the rule in the Donegal Galway game last weekend with the touch on the ground by Thompson, a referee calling a throw could decide the All-Ireland on Sunday afternoon. Where are you on that? Because it seems to me, and I'm not a hurler, and I haven't been since I was 12 years old, that the ball is thrown 25 times a game. How is the referee going to put his stamp on that particular aspect of the rules on the biggest day of the year?
For me, it's very simple, right? It's like anything. If a referee turns around and he sees a player on the ground split open, he can't presume the fella beside him hit him, so he can't send him off. He has to have concrete evidence. And if he does not see a player physically 100% throwing the ball in front of him, he can't blow for it. It might look like a throw, he might think it's a blow, but if he's not sure, if he's not sure, well, he can't give away a free. That was my issue with Tomas Walsh last day, who I thought had a brilliant game, right? And Liam Gordon the night before, where he gave away. So they're guessing sometimes. I mean, if Alan is here refereeing it, and I'm hand passing the ball to Lee, he cannot see whether I'm hand passing or throwing it. So unfortunately, until the powers that be come up and changes the rules, they just
So you're
have to
saying
let
none
it
of
go.
these should be called?
Unless they can see him. If you can't, it's like anything in life. If you cannot see it, you cannot deem someone guilty. That's
then,
my take on it.
if you were to flip that on its head, could you not argue that unless the referee can see separation between ball and hand, well then it's not a legitimate hand pass?
So now we're saying that if a referee can't see a player's hand and he releases the ball, it's a free. If that's the case, we may as well make it a free taking competition.
Which some would argue it'd be
Don't
go.
I'm gonna flip it out, like, because I want to, I would like.
It's the big calls.
It's-
Like
yeah.
the call there against Alan Connolly.
But I don't care if it's a big call. I don't care if it's the last minute of an All-Ireland final that decides an All-Ireland
long as
final.
it's the right
If it's
call.
the right thing to do.
Yeah.
But how do you correct that? I did an article with Michael Verney about bringing in a TMO system. So you're talking about a really, really big call in an All-Ireland football final, All-Ireland hurling final, that, again, a hand pass or whatever it is, a sending off race. How many times have we seen it this year where, again, the Cork 20 game down in Gaelic Grounds, David Burke, for example, up in Salt Hill, these small little things.
Jesus, a hurling TMO, Alan, would be on duty 40, 50
but for
times a game.
For the big calls.
But what's a big call?
Not a throw ball, sure.
Not a throw ball. Now, again, how do we counteract that? But I'm talking a goal scoring opportunity. If there's a throw ball or deemed to be a throw ball, that can it be reviewed? Now, I know you're slowing down the game, possibly.
Should our linesmen not see better, though? If it's back
Depends
to
where.
do you know?
you guys are so elite when it comes to the, minute skills of the game. A flick of the wrist on a hand, what appears to be a throw ball, if you were to slow down frame by frame, vast majority of the time it is an actual hand pass. I don't know how the referees are supposed to.
They can't
which
see
goes
it.
back to your point, like unless there's absolute certainty, you can't blow it. But I think there's a chance that the game could be decided on Sunday. These two teams, the last 4 matches between them have all been one-score games.
No, I don't think Johnny Murphy's going to get involved in throw balls on Sunday.
He'll just let it flow.
Because if he doesn't blow for one, people say, how can he see it?
Yeah.
So it's going to be a free-for-all on Sunday afternoon when it comes to
I think it's going to be anyway.
Listen, if there was Clare players, which I'm sure they're not, if they had tuned into the first half of this preview, they'd be delighted because we barely mentioned them. If there was Clare supporters and they're listening to the first half, they're probably foaming at the mouth talking about, well, they haven't even mentioned our attack, and it's all been about how Cork are going to hurt us and how well the Cork forwards are going and how much they've improved since the Waterford game. So let's talk some Clare, Alan. The first half against Kilkenny, is that an aberration? Because if they produce anything similar to that this weekend, you would imagine they won't get the second chance that Kilkenny gave them.
100%. Like I was watching that game and it was 8 points they scored in the first half. I remember Brian Lohan saying that there could have been a lot of changes at half time, these marquee forwards, but then we saw what they did in the second half. But as you alluded to there, if Clare go out and perform like that against Cork, Cork will have this game over after 40 minutes. But in saying that, you would think that Clare would have learned a lot. As Shane said there, I don't think they're going to change an awful lot. I heard Brian Lohan saying before that Kilkenny game that their training was exceptional. He couldn't have predicted that first half performance. But then flipping his head, we saw what they could do in 35-40 minutes of hurling in the second half against Kilkenny. And that's my slight concern. As you said there, if I was Clare, a Clare supporter, or a Clare team, for example, there's no talk about them. It's all Cork. It's all Cork, the hype of Cork, what they've done, stop the drive for 5, for example. And that will be a slight concern from me looking from the outset. Obviously, from Pat Ryan's point of view and his management and his players, they're trying to keep all that out. But certainly I think they're a dangerous animal. It'll be very interesting, the matchups that happens. It's going to be a shootout. We saw that down the park, 3:26 to 3:24 finished. And again, those matchups, who picks up Tony Kelly, who picks up Shane O'Donnell, for example. Do you follow Tony Kelly, do you not? So I think definitely Clare coming in under the radar, nice and quietly. Probably prefer to be coming in the way they are. Again, coming off maybe 35-40 minutes of really good performance against Kilkenny. Now, some might say that they were lucky maybe to get over the line against Kilkenny, that Kilkenny should have had them out of sight. But certainly, I think they're probably a wounded animal coming in because they're maybe not getting the respect maybe they deserve.
The scope is bigger for Clare or for Cork.
Room for improvement.
Yeah. Much because, like, if take Tony Kelly, his first half performance last day, like, he could have been taken off easily. Yeah. Another day, that's him gone, but flips on his head, scores 2 good points second half. Again, Shane O'Donnell probably hurler of the year for most at the moment. More scope for him to do better. So, like, they have some killer animals similar to Cork, like, but again, we're just probably not painting them in the same light because of who they played in the semi-finals.
If you're Brian Lohan on Sunday, Shane, where do you play Tony?
On midfield. Just playing midfield. And no, like, I think I'd say he didn't feel the weight of the ball in the first half. Like,
it was 47 minutes before he got the ball in his hand.
Yeah, but like, it wasn't just him, and I think he probably, just because of his ability, I suppose, is, he comes in not for criticism, but it's a scope on him a bit more. Like, that when he's not involved, it gets highlighted more than when some of the other lads aren't involved. But I just play midfield. Like, there's no need to complicate it. I play Shane O'Donnell deep inside. I just get the ball. Like, he is he's sick the way he's playing, like, honestly. And actually, an interesting one, if he does win Hurler of the Year, I don't know if there's something in this, the last 3 Hurlers of the Year will have played no league.
There is something that
I wonder if
there's loads in that.
David Burns, Aaron Gillan and Shane O'Donnell, I just wondering, is it a freshness thing, that he's openly said that, he doesn't want or doesn't need to, or whatever the wording is, that, he just doesn't play the league, he wants to be fresh. He came in, his first game this year was the league final, and his form since has been frightening. Like, so
I've never seen a player come back off the back of very little hurling and produce what he can produce.
Yeah, he's just like, his touch and his feet work, everything is just like, it looks, he obviously in 2013 young and thrown in the deep end and done really well, and like 11 years later to still have that form is just exceptional. So yeah, I play Tony midfield, I play Shane O'Donnell deep inside. As I said, no real need to complicate things to find Brian Lohan, just would be wary of that space that could be created at the back.
It is so easy for games to pass Tony Kelly by, Alan. We've seen it so many times over the years, and invariably Clare don't win when Tony Kelly isn't on the ball maybe 10 times in the first half and then starts to really come into his own when the game breaks up a little in the second half. Do Clare players need to actively seek Tony out, or do you just hope that he gets on enough breaks or find himself in little pockets of space almost inadvertently that it just works for him? Like, how do you get the best out of him?
I think inadvertently, because we saw in the league that Clare won the National League without Tony Kelly. So maybe a couple of years ago there was maybe an over-reliance on him.
Of course, beat Cork earlier this year without Tony Kelly as well.
Exactly. So I wouldn't look too much into that. His best position, probably as Shane said there, probably midfield. Like if I was Clare, I'd be saying, right, give him a bit of a free roll. Half forward, not too sure. As you said there, 48, 49 minutes was the first time he touched the ball. But it'll be interesting to see, do you go man-on-man with him? Do you designate someone to go man-on-man with him? I know when Limerick played him, they kind of leave him off. But then when Kilkenny, they man-mark him, that he finds it very difficult to get into those pockets of space and pick off scores. But again, I would be trying to get him on the ball as much as you can. But at the same time, I wouldn't be over-reliant on him. And I think that Clare played their best hurling maybe when they're not kind of seeking out Tony Kelly or trying to get him the ball as much. No, you want your marquee forward to be in play. But again, Tony Kelly, Shane O'Donnell, a few more could have been taken off at half-time against Kilkenny, but he stuck with his trusted players and people he relies on.
Who do you foresee picking up those guys in terms of the Cork defence?
It's very difficult to know. If he's midfield, I don't see Fitzgibbon picking him up because they're two shooters. They want to get involved in the game as much as possible. I know when we played him one year down in the Gaelic grounds, we had Niall O'Leary was designated to mark him. He went with him. He went out half forward, he went with him. He went in full forward, he was with him. But again, that's taking Niall O'Leary out from the cornerback position, who fills it,
Would you see someone like a Tim O'Malley who picked up Cian Lynch last day doing a job on Tony Kelly? Potentially.
Possibly just like Cian Lynch was quiet-ish.
Ish.
Tim obviously ran out a bit of legs towards the end. It's hard to know who will pick him up or where he will line up. Will he line up half back? Or will he go midfield? Like, you said his best position is midfield, but I don't know, will Brian Lohan do that? Will he change it?
And then who's probably the best adapt to pick up Shane O'Donnell for you?
Probably Niall O'Leary for me, yeah. Like I thought Sean O'Donoghue, Aaron Glenn definitely got the better off in the last time. He was really, really good. So
and Glenn could have scored more.
Easily.
He left 2 goals there. He could have had another day like Joe.
Off Shaded Hands inside, I'd be sticking Niall O'Leary on him anyway. I don't know
I would as well.
Yeah.
It's interesting, O'Donnell, like he's normally if you're a full back or a quarterback and you keep your man scoreless, you're thinking, well, I've had a good day. He's one of the few forwards that could give you an absolute roasting and he wouldn't have scored off you.
Yeah.
But he's laid off 2-6 and maybe he's been brought down for a penalty and he set up a couple of frees and he's unique.
He is, and I think like if you're going to mark him the next day, you're not worried about keeping him scoreless, or you're just how much can I limit the damage? You have to understand like that. Marking a guy of his form with that space, with his pace, with his cleverness, his brain, like his hurling brain is just unbelievable. And like it's not as if the ball has come beautifully in front of him. He can win his own dirty ball up high 50-50. So
has there been an inside forward as unselfish as him before?
I think his problem is he was too unselfish.
He probably is, yeah.
So he. But I think over the last couple of games, I think he's become a small bit more direct and is taking the scores himself. Once he gets the ball in his hand, I can guarantee you this: if he gets the ball in his hand on Sunday, he will make the right decision that would probably end up in a score. The key is, and I know it's easy to say, is for him not to get that initial ball into his hand, because once it does, it's either he'll take a score, win a free, or set up a score. One of them three.
He looked pretty selfish in 2013, didn't he?
Score
in his hat-trick.
It's funny, we're only talking about two guys, but then like you have Rogers, Peter Duggan, I think is going to be huge the weekend for puckouts, and then you have Aidan McCarthy, free taker like Joe, so big pressure on him at the weekend as well.
Who picks up Mark Rogers? He got 1-5, 1-6 down in Park against Kieran Joyce. A little bit like Shane Barrett. Do you push on him, or do you get a midfielder maybe to pick him up?
Is Ryan Taylor brought in from the start, or is it just too soon?
It's a big one. It's a huge, like himself and Ian Gallivan have been really, really good coming in off the bench, and I think it would be a foolish move to start him as much as the temptation might be there, because the reality is, unless Clare give a performance in the first half like they did the last day in Cork out the town, which is most unlikely. I don't see it happening. After 50 minutes, the game's going to be in the melting pot. It's going to go down the home straight. You want to have people coming on the pitch that you know will make a difference. Whereas if you start them guys and it doesn't go well for them or whatever, the impact that's coming on mightn't be the same. So it might be a hard thing to do, but I definitely keep him in reserve.
Okay, well, look, we're at that point where we need to lay it all on the line, lads. I think we know where Alan's going to go, but we will ask him the question in a moment.
He's going to
anyway.
say a draw. Replay Cork, win the replay.
Shane, so it's a Cork team that have come back from the dead and they've beaten arguably the greatest team of all time twice in the same championship season against the league champions, but a team that really need to put that first half against Kilkenny in the rearview mirror and really quickly. Otherwise, this will not be the classic that we're hoping it's going to be. So I've led the witness a little in the manner in which I framed that to you. But who's going to win it Sunday and why?
I think Cork, for no other reason than I just think that the space are full forward. I just think they're full forward. I can go to town, and that's if someone had said to me, "What's the one area of the game where you think that a difference will be made?" And I just think Clare play a very brave way, and if Adam Hogan and Conor Cleary, Conor Lean can come out early on with a few balls. Adam Hogan, the best cornerback to win a free, I'd say that ever existed, right? And if they can win the first few balls and they do that brave move of leaving it man on man with 6 yards of space, it could be totally different. But just the pace and the power of Connolly and Hayes, especially, and then the magic that Patrick Horgan has, I just think that's where the game could be won and lost on Sunday.
Alan, Cork, obviously, and why?
Let him answer. He might take
Tell us why you think
bring the
Clare
hype
will win the
down.
All-Ireland on Sunday.
No, I do think based off the two semi-finals, the way Cork are coming into it, the performance that they've given, I can see Cork winning maybe by 4 or 5 points. But in saying that, as Shane alluded to there, that if Clare the backs can get on top of the Cork forwards early, you might see a different game. Now again, I don't think Cork are going to run away with it. 100% not, but it's going to be a bit of a shootout. Which set of defenders are going to come out on top? Like you have Shane O'Donnell, Mark Rogers, Tony Kelly, Peter Duggan on one side, you have Seamus Henry, Patrick Horgan, Alan Connolly, Brian Hayes on the other side. So
Brilliant.
Which set of defenders are going to come out on top? And again, I think it's all to play for, but I'm going to stick with my guns. I'm going to say Cork.
If you'd said to the Cork hurling supporters on the morning of the 2006 All-Ireland, the day you're going for the 3 in a row, that it's going to be 19 years before you win an All-Ireland championship, it would have been it'd be described as being utterly insane. So what would it mean to Cork? I mean, for Clare, who've only won, 5 All-Irelands in their entire history, maybe I've even overstating 5. Every All-Ireland is treated like it's the first. But Cork have so many, but yet they haven't done it since 2005. Like, what would winning at Sunday mean?
It's not used as motivation. Pat Ryan or anything like that won't be putting up things in the wall or saying it's been 19 years since that's out of their mind. This team is trying to create its own history. But huge. It'd be massive for that group of players, be massive for supporters, just for Cork in general, because 19 years, I'm a teacher, I teach young fellas in school, and I say, do you remember Sean O'Galbeen lifting Liam McCarthy Cup? And they go, what? Who? Mm-hmm. And I'm going, I'd be looking and going, you don't know who Sean O'Galbeen is lifting Liam McCarthy. So from that point of view, it would be massive, be huge for Cork supporters, but also for that group of players, obviously, because there's been a lot of them that I've shouldered with over the years, have been on the road a long time, that you'd love to see them get over the line.
Who do you think, Dave?
I think if Cork produce what they have done since the second game of the Munster Championship round robin, they win. I think if both teams play to their best, Cork win.
But there's a book coming.
No.
Well, I don't think there is. I really hope for the good of the championship, which I think has been a brilliant championship. We mentioned Leinster earlier, slightly lower standard.
But exciting.
A really exciting championship. We've got 2 brilliant semi-finals, particularly in the second half. We had Limerick getting so close to the 5 in a row. I think it's been a really memorable championship. And I hope that this game on Sunday lives up to that expectation and the hype and is in keeping with what has been a brilliant championship so far. So I'm going to go out on a limb and I'm going to say that both teams are going to turn up. And I think if that happens, there'll be a puck of the ball in it, but I think Cork win.
I think we agree one thing. We'll do the review. This is the preview. We'll do the review from the winners. Can't you?
Yeah. On the night. We'll bring Shane now.
We'll bring whoever you want.
If it's on in Clare, I'm not so sure I take a chance.
Lads, it's been brilliant. Alan and Shane, thanks so much for giving us your thoughts.
Thanks,
Let's hope we get an absolute thriller and one that we'll be talking about for weeks to come. That was the William Hill powered podcast that is the Square Ball, and it was our preview of this year's All-Ireland Senior Hurling Final in the company of Shane and Alan. Our thanks to them again. For myself and Lee, we'll speak to you again next week because we will be doing something very similar for the football final. We wait to get our teeth into the preview of Galway and Armagh. Until then, we'll speak to you again soon.